You are once again welcome to Bio 211D Plant Physiology, Unit 3, Session 5, Uptake of Water by the Roots. And by the end of this session, students should be able to draw and label the CS of a typical dicot root, and again give a schematic diagram to show the pathways of water through the roots. Explain the conditions that cause water uptake by the roots. Describe how water is absorbed and moved through the roots. State the importance of the endodermis in the movement of water and dissolved substances. And finally, you explain root pressure and give the evidence to show that root pressure is set up as a result of water uptake by the roots. So we begin our session. A typical root water takes through the roots. So we have water uptake by root hairs. A lot of flow can be through the cell wall root, apoplasty. So the apoplastic root begins from 1 and moves through. We have 3 here. Symplastic root begins from 2 and it moves in that direction towards we have the epidermis, the cortex, and the endodermis and the vascular bundle. Then we have the xylem and the other vessels. So in here we have the Casparian strip. So the apoplastic root moves through the Casparian strip into the xylem vessels. So the figure should give you an idea of the internal organization of a typical dicotyledonous root. So from the outside, there is first the epidermis, which is also called the piliferous layer because it is modified to produce root hairs. The root hairs are 1 cell thick, long and slender outgrowths of a single epidermal cell. When fully extended, they are about 4 millimeters long. The piliferous layer is present in the younger parts of a root. In older roots, it is replaced by the epiblem, a parenchymatous layer of cells. So following the outer epidermal, going towards the core of the root are first the cortex, composed of tightly packed parenchymal cells, which are separated in some few places by water-filled intercellular spaces. The next layer of cells is the endodermis. The endodermis is a layer of specialized cells that enclose the vascular tissues. The endodermis contains numerous starch grain and so is also called the starch sheath. The endodermis has a suberin layer in the cell walls that makes the sheath impervious to water movement. So it is called the Casparian strip. After the endodermis and surrounding the vascular tissue is a layer of parenchymal cells called the pericycle. The vascular system forms a stellar core of the roots, the phloem vessels alternating between the arms of the xylem vessels. So which part of the root is responsible for absorption of water from the soil? Water absorption takes place in the younger parts of the root in the area of the root hairs. The root hairs lack cuticle and are numerous, slender and flexible, and penetrate in between and intimately around the soil particles. They provide a large surface area over which to absorb water. Because the root hair lack cuticle, they absorb water easily. Study the figure and note how intimate root hairs are with soil particles. A considerable amount of water is also absorbed beyond the root hair zone toward the apex of the root. Here too, the epidermis lacks cuticle and water is absorbed directly from the surrounding soil water. Water is absorbed by the root hairs mainly by osmosis. Why is osmosis the main mode of water absorption by the root hairs? A water potential gradient exists across the roots from higher potential in the epidermis to lower potential in the cells next to the xylem. Because of the presence of sugars and other metabolites, the concentration of solutes in the sap vacuole is greater than that of the soil water, making the solute potential of the cell sap very negative. Water molecules are thus drawn across the cellulose wall and partially permeable protoplasm into the vacuum. From the root hair, water passes to the vascular tissues in the center of the root through the cortex. Water moves across the root by 3 possible pathways, and these are the apoplast pathway, the simplast pathway, and the vascular pathway. Now the apoplast pathway. This is the pathway that has water moving along between the cell walls, water moving through the cellulose of adjacent cells and through small intercellular spaces between them. At the endodermis, the movement of water is halted. Do you know why? What passage will the water and dissolved substances use once they are blocked by the Casparian strip? Water and dissolved substances must pass through the cell surface membrane and into the cytoplasm of the cells of the endodermis. The endodermis thus controls and regulates the movement of solutes through to the xylem. Why should the movement of water and solutes be regulated? Try and answer before you continue. Did you arrive at this? Control and or regulation of water and solute into the xylem is necessary for the following reasons. 1. Protects the plant against the entry of toxic substances and harmful diseases causing bacteria. In older roots, increased suberin inlays cause water and dissolved substances to get to the xylem only through the plasmodesmata, which remain as pores in the cell walls. Simplast pathway. This pathway involves the movement of water from root hair cells to cells of the root through the cytoplasm. Vacuolar pathway. As you can well guess, the subvacuoles constitute the passageway for the movement of water. So just take a look once again at the figure. Envisage water leaving the pericycle into the xylem. This will leave the solute potential of the pericycle very negative and the water potential very low. Is it not? As a result, water will move in from the cytoplasm and vacuum of the endodermis to replace the water leaving the pericycle into the xylem. So as you can see, the concentration gradient will extend right from the pericycle to the root hair cells, which are surrounded by soil water, very high in water potential, and so by osmosis, water moves along the gradient to move water along the simplest and vacuolar pathways into the xylem. So root pressure is evident when copious quantities of water exude from the cut end of a herbaceous plant stem. It is also evident when early in the morning before the sun is up, drop of water are seen at the tips of leaves of grasses. This is called guttation. Root pressure can be demonstrated by fixing a glass tubing to the cut end of the stem of a potted plant. Water can be seen rising up the glass tube. Root pressure could occur as a result of the active secretion of salts into the xylem sap, and so lowering its water potential. Water then moves into the xylem by osmosis from neighboring root cells. The process is inhibited or stopped by respiratory inhibitors such as cyanide, lack of oxygen, and low temperature, giving credence to the active uptake of ions as the mechanism that creates the root pressure, because it is energy dependent. So in review, the forces involved in root pressure can be measured by attaching a mercury manometer to the cut end of the stem of a potted plant. We have noted hour as a result of solute differences between the cell cytoplasm cells, and the soil solution water is drawn up the root hair cells into the root by osmosis. That water moves through the root through 3 possible passageways. We have seen the role of the endodermis in the control of water movement into the root xylem and the evidence of